Well, quite a fierce exchange of fire in this area of the battle. The Iowa there managed to get a secondary gun hit on the Vizcaya and has caused another fire, and the Vizcaya's ability to fight the fires has just been temporarily stopped, so both those fires are going to burn out of control for the next turn. Excuse me. And she's also lost another 2 knots of speed, so she's slowing down. But the Brooklyn is attempting to shoot, or fire rather, at the Cristobal Colon without effect, and in the meantime the Vizcaya's fire is concentrating on the Brooklyn, and the Brooklyn was hit by a secondary shell from the Vizcaya, which caused a fire in the forward section of the ship on the superstructure, and the fire, until it's put out, is obscuring the vision of all the gunnery on the ship, so they have a problem sighting the target, the Cristobal Colon, and also the fire control system has been damaged quite severely for the primary batteries, so the primary batteries are all going to have to use their local firing control systems, which halves the effectiveness of the guns as well. So it's looking good for the Cristobal Colon to escape, unless the Iowa can somehow catch her, and she hasn't got the speed to do so. So I will probably have to introduce some ruling about when the Cristobal Colon changes to the inferior coal and slows down for that reason, but that's in the future, so I'll just leave that situation to develop at the moment. Further back, the Almirante Kendo is moving very slowly now, only 8 knots, so she's got a way to go before she beaches. The New York, I think I said in the last turn, I'm not sure, but she has started to turn. She's only got 10 knot speed, and her guns can only fire with difficulty because she has quite a serious list, so she's decided to withdraw from the battle. So she's turning to head eastwards, and the Oregon and Indiana are still steaming along at reduced speed in an attempt to join the battle and shooting at the Almirante Kendo without effect, just because that's the only available target at the moment. But they may, you never know, they may get into the battle. They might be able to catch up with the Vizcaya if she's still afloat by that stage, and allow the Brooklyn and the Iowa to chase the Cristobal Colon. Sorry, I forgot to mention as well that the Texas, which was in that area there, was likely to sink on a roll of 1 to 10 on percentile dice, and she rolled a 9, so she sank beneath the waves. So the Vizcaya and the Cristobal Colon have both managed to score hits on the Brooklyn with their secondary batteries. 2 hits from the Vizcaya, 1 from the Cristobal Colon. A funnel has collapsed on the Brooklyn, making gunnery observation even harder than it is at the moment, and she's lost a knot of speed as well, so that's significant because she is now, her maximum speed is now slower than the current maximum speed of the Cristobal Colon, not by much. But in return, the Iowa managed to score a hit on the Vizcaya, and the fires that are raging aboard are growing in intensity because she wasn't able to control them during this turn, and that is having a significant effect on her performance, and the fires have actually incapacitated her remaining primary gun battery, the forward gun turret, so she now only has secondary armament. And at the rear of the chase here, no change. The New York is heading back to harbour, and the Oregon and the Indiana are still firing without effect on the Almirante Akendo. Right, in this turn the Brooklyn turned her guns on the Vizcaya because she's so close by, and the Iowa changed her target to the Cristobal Colon. The Iowa didn't score any hits on the Cristobal Colon, but the Brooklyn managed to hit the Vizcaya, which has caused her yet more problems. She's losing speed again, and once again the damage control parties can't operate in the next turn. The fires are growing because there's no one to get them under control, so in trouble but not finished yet. What else happened? The Oregon, way over there, actually did manage to get a lucky hit in on the Almirante Akendo, hit the main belt. It's caused damage to steam lines, so her speed is dropping, and watertight bulkheads are compromised now. She's got flooding, and her speed is right down to 5 knots and will drop 1 knot per turn for the next 10 turns, so she may not even reach the beach. And also she no longer has any damage control passes, they've all been destroyed, so there's nothing she can do to repair the damage to the steam lines. So I think if she's running at 5 knots, I'm not sure, I haven't done the arithmetic, but I don't think she'll have enough speed left to get to the beach before she comes to a stop. Well, the Vizcaya and the Brooklyn have battered one another to pieces now. The Cristobal Colon and the Vizcaya between them managed to get 3 hits in on the Brooklyn that were all on the main belt and all detonated. She's had several boiler rooms flooded, another one, and engine rooms as well, and another boiler exploded. At the minute she's got no forward speed at all, 0 knots, 3 fires raging, and her guns are effectively crippled because there is such a penalty on her firing now that she is effectively out of the battle. And the Vizcaya is absolutely, she was struck twice with the Brooklyn's primary guns, 6 times with the secondary guns, and is way over her accumulated damage points now, but incredibly the crew are passing their morale checks and remaining on board. But this is exactly what happened in the historic battle, so I don't think I'm going to continue to move these ships, either of these two. They're just going to remain there burning, and I'll ignore them for the rest of the game. The only option for the Vizcaya is to try and beach for her crew to get off, but she will abandon ship eventually. So those two are now out of the battle. Up this end here, the Admiral Akendo's crew did fail their morale check, having crossed another damaged tier, having been hit by the Indiana this time. So they're drifting very slowly towards the beach. the ship is anyway, with the crew jumping off. So she is out of the battle as well. And the New York, nothing's going to happen to the New York now, that ship there, except that she's heading back to port, so I might take her off the table. So it comes down now to the two rear ships there trailing way behind, with the possibility that the Iowa might be able to get some hits on the Cristobal Colon and slow her down, but at present she's still got her full rate of knots and is a faster ship than the Iowa, so will be pulling away from her. So this is again very similar to the end of the historic battle, only a different ship in pursuit of the Cristobal Colon, the Iowa, rather than the Oregon. So we'll see how that plays out, but it's really down to those four ships now: the Cristobal Colon, the Iowa, the Oregon and the Indiana. They're the only ones left effectively in the battle. Well, I was thinking that the game was probably over with the Cristobal Colon being able to pull away, but the Iowa in the distance there managed to get a lucky shot in with her primary battery, 40-inch shell, that hit a turret, detonated, but didn't actually cause any specific damage effects, but it was sufficient structural damage to push the Cristobal Colon over a tier level in the damage tier, and the result of that was steam leaks due to structural damage that has reduced her speed by 3 knots. So she is now matching the Iowa's speed. They both have a maximum speed of 17 knots, which means that the Cristobal Colon is indeed slowing down. But in the distance there, the two American ships in the distance at present have no chance of catching her, so are likely to fall off the table edge. But this is an interesting development here, as it means that the Iowa could indeed damage the Cristobal Colon, and at the moment the side guns of the Cristobal Colon, which are the only one she has, there's only one that can actually traverse back, so she's got one secondary gun firing at the Iowa, whereas the Iowa have their 2 guns in their front-facing primary turret and a front-facing secondary gun turret there, which can fire 2 barrels as well. So she's firing 4 barrels to the Cristobal's 1. Well, in that turn, the Iowa didn't repeat its success, so this chase is going to go on for a while now, with the gap remaining the same between the two ships. So what I'll probably do is just keep playing it turn by turn and give you an update when anything changes. Well, at 10:35 the Cristobal Colon scored a single hit on the Iowa, but barely scratched it, so no change in the circumstances. At 11:03 the Cristobal Colon was hit by a shell from the secondary gun turret of the Iowa, and by sheer bad luck the damage caused was on a secondary gun mount, and she's got 10 gun mounts, and a random roll of the dice drew the one gun that she's currently firing at the Iowa. So she's now being chased and fired upon without being able to return fire. Well, it's now 11:15 and this gap isn't changing. The Cristobal Colon isn't firing on the Iowa at the moment, and the Iowa is firing a single primary turret with 2 barrels and a single secondary turret with 2 barrels, so 4 shots every 2 minutes. Not 4 shots, but 4 guns firing every 2 minutes. So there's always the possibility that the Cristobal Colon is going to be hit and her speed reduced and the gap closed. And the actual battle, historic battle, went on for about 4 hours. So I should really carry on playing it to see what happens. But I've decided way down here that the 2 chasing American ships have only just reached those burning vessels, the Vizcaya and the Brooklyn. So I'm going to drop them out of the chase now, take them off the table, adjust the table, or adjust the position of the 2 lead ships back down the table, and just play the game now just with these 2 ships involved. At 11:23, the secondary gun of the Iowa struck the Cristobal Colon with 1 shell. A few points of general damage, not much else. So she's being chipped away at, but hasn't reached another damage tier yet. And the distance to the Iowa is neither increasing or decreasing. Right, so it's now 11:31, and the Iowa has struck the Cristobal Colon with a 40-inch shell, massive explosion in one of the gun turrets, and the sort of structural shock to the ship has meant that there has been flooding. She was pushed through several damage tier levels all at once, and the flooding affected one of the propeller shafts, and that spread to the adjacent propeller shafts. So she's lost both her propeller shafts and is at 0 knots now. So she's at a standstill, and in the next turn won't be able to give any bridge commands anyway. I was thinking of turning her to face the Iowa to bring her side guns to bear, but she can't even do that now. So I'm going to carry on playing the game just to see how long it takes the Iowa to finish her off, but that is effectively the last of the Spanish ships out of the battle. Right, well, there we are. It's now 11:37 game time, and the game has ended, the battle has ended in a dramatic fashion. The Iowa managed to strike the Cristobal Colon twice, once with a primary battery, once with a secondary, and it was actually the secondary shell that ignited a fire in some ready-use ammunition, and following on from that there was a large fire, but also the possibility of an additional damage effect, and when I rolled for that, there was a 10% chance of the magazine in the ship exploding, and sure enough I rolled 9, so the Cristobal Colon is destroyed. And I've done a little bit of arithmetic, and I reckon this represents something like 36 miles along the coastline from the harbour entrance, so she didn't get as far as her counterpart in real life. I think that was about 75 miles away that she was scuttled. So that's the end of the game. I've really got absorbed in this. I've spent something like 4 days. I've only been playing during the daylight hours so that I could get some decent video shots of it. But it's taken up nearly 4 days of play to simulate about, what was that, about an hour and a half of game time. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I really like Secret Rules, as I've said. You can just absolute wallow in detail. It's kind of like a sort of role-playing game, stroke skirmish game in a way, rather than a war game. You can absolutely put yourself in the place of all those sailors and crew on board the ships, and you can analyse each strike of each shell in detail, how thick the armour is at the place where it struck, what the trajectory was, what the penetrative ability of the shell was likely to be, and the chances of it detonating or passing straight through, and the variations in armour from one ship to another, and the variations in capabilities in terms of firepower. It's all immensely absorbing. So that's it. That's the end of the game. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.